everyone. Welcome back to the How to Podcast series. I have someone here that's going to cause a lot of trouble on the podcast. That's true, right? And
yes. Let's just be upfront.
Right up front, let's have a little disclaimer at the beginning of the episode.
Yes.
This is going to get very rebellious.
Yes.
Marti's here, and we're going to be talking about her podcast journey. She's fresh back from Podfest. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, that was so much fun.
We're going to be talking about encouraging rebellious behavior in your podcast.
And rebellious action.
Right? And there might even be cigarettes and pancakes.
Cigarettes and pancakes.
Might happen.
Yes.
So, Marti,
it used to happen.
Welcome to the podcast. Happy to have you here.
Thanks, Dave. I'm so excited. How are you?
I'm good. I'm listening to your show. I love it.
Thanks.
So,
did you review it?
Oh, yes, for sure. 100%.
Thank you.
It's really good.
Thank you.
And I also have an author podcast. So
I would
love to compare our author podcast as well. Mm-hmm. Tell everybody about your show. What's it called and what's it about?
Okay, awesome. So I'm a publisher. I've been publishing books for 15 years now, actually. 15 years I've been publishing books. And I'm like, listen, I didn't start out wanting to publish books. I have wanted to do a lot of things in my life. Publishing was never one of them. I fell into publishing, and it was just like this crazy story how that happened. I was actually, I got tired of selling the insurance that I was selling, and I was praying, and this is what I prayed verbatim: Jesus, I'm gonna need you to give me some Jesus work to do, and I need you to pay me for it. So then I walked into this company to peddle my insurance, and I walked out with a job offer that just so happened to be at a faith-based publishing company. And like lots of stories between then and here, but I mean, like that was it. That was it. I've been publishing ever since I fell in love with it. The mechanics of publishing is just the mechanics of publishing, right? Like everybody needs edit, everybody needs layout. You know, if you're writing a children's book, you need illustrations, blah, 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 blah. But 5 years ago, I started my company, which is Rebel Queen, because I just kind of wanted to do things my way. I wanted to connect with my authors in a way that I just felt like I wasn't able to connect with them pre-Rebel. And, you know, I started podcasting. I've always wanted to podcast. And this is so weird, because I wanted to podcast, but I did not want to talk to authors. And I'm like, well, Marti, that makes absolutely zero freaking sense, because you work with authors. Why don't you want to talk to authors? And so, listen, I thought that my podcast was going to be where I talked to seasoned business owners about business and about their journey, because what I really wanted to do was inspire the next generation of business owners, right? I wanted to inspire specifically women, just because, listen, I know way too many women who get stuck in toxic situations because they just cannot take care of themselves and or their children. And there's way too many of us to shorten that learning curve, right? If you really want it, you can get it. We're going to help you. But in doing that, and listen, when I started the podcast, because I kind of knee jerk everything. When I decide I'm going to do something, I just kind of roll with it. I don't have a plan. I just start rolling with it. So I was on the phone with a friend of mine in the publishing industry, and we were just talking about the publishing industry. I mean, because we've been doing it long enough that we know stuff that like the regular average Joe just doesn't know. So I said, oh my God, let's start the podcast. In the first season, let's just talk about publishing. And she said, okay, cool. So, and then I said, okay, cool. Let's schedule the first recording. And we did. And then I was going to do like, okay, season 1, we're going to talk about publishing. Season 2, we're going to talk about business. And then what I realized that I was doing was I was going to, each season was going to have a whole brand new audience. And, you know, listen, I know books. And I know that you don't recreate the wheel as an author with each book that you write. You know, you build your brand based on who you are as a writer and an author. So I found in this publishing, I found that I just have this ability. I don't know if it's a gift or a skill. I don't know, but I just feel like it does not matter who I'm talking to. If I know that I can shift the conversation to whatever it is that they do for something that will help an author and a writer, you know, to help them in their process. So yeah, I talk to people who write books, for people who are writing books, and I love it.
Nice.
Freaking love it.
I love it.
That was a really long story. So that's how the Rebel Maker was born.
See, there we go. How long have you been podcasting for?
September. I launched my podcast. Now listen, I'll back up. I've been recording for a hot minute, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I would run. Things were going really great. I was doing it. And then I'm like, and then, I mean, like, listen, last year was terrible. I had this, my throat, my voice, it was so weird. Like I just was groggy all the time. And I'm like, well, I can't record any podcasts sounding like, like my sexy cold voice. That's terrible. Nobody wants to hear that. So then I would wait and I would wait. And then I would just like, screw it. I just need to do it regardless of how my voice sounded. But then I got caught up on like the intro and the outro and the trailer. And I'm like, I can't do it. Nothing sounds right. So then I ended up hiring a friend. She's my friend now. She wasn't my friend then, but I ended up hiring a friend to help me with my messaging. And like, listen, the gold that she was able to pull out of me, now you see it's my trailer, it's my intro, it's my outro. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I loved it. But I launched The Rebel Maker at the end of September, and I've launched weekly since then.
Nice.
I've got 20 episodes out. I just recently took a break because, man, I did not realize how much work podcasting was going to be, as you know.
Right. Yeah.
So much work.
There's so much to do, but it's so rewarding though too, right? You get to see.
I love it.
When you look at your stats, what makes you super excited when you look at your stats?
All right. So listen, this is what gets me super excited. One, that I'm having consistent downloads every week.
Good.
And it's only been like 2 weeks that I haven't dropped a new episode, but I'm still getting consistent downloads, which is super exciting. The reviews that are coming in, I think I have like, I don't know, 18 reviews, 12 reviews, something like that. It's under 20 reviews, but every time a new one comes in, I get super excited. Yeah. And I try to figure out, do I know that person? And some of them I don't know.
Best.
So when you have random people reviewing, I'm like, wow. Isn't
that nice?
It is so nice.
Right. One thing I did with mine is on whatever, depends on what host you're on, but for my hosts, you can download like a CSV file, like an Excel sheet of all of the locations that you're listening to. And you can upload that to Google and it'll pin all the locations on the map where you're listening to, and then zoom out to the world and you can see the whole world where you've been listening to. There's countries I've never heard of before that listen to my show. And I'm like, and I zoom in. I'm like, that is the coolest thing. There's a person who lives in this country, this city, who listens to my show. I'm like, that's outstanding.
So I don't know who you use. I use Buzzsprout, and I do have a list. Yeah. I don't know how to download it as CSV. I don't know how to upload it and see like where that is on a map, because some of those countries I haven't heard of either. But it is very exciting. I mean, because listen, like everything that I do has to have some sort of impact. Like the desire is the impact. Yes. Why do I podcast? I podcast because I want to increase my audience, because I want to do more books, because I want to share the wealth with all of the people. But it all relates to impact, and the fact that I am having impact in places that I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be in someone's home is just freaking amazing.
Yeah. So, okay, a good example. 2 weeks ago, I had a gentleman reach out to me from Warsaw, Poland, who Googled me and Googled the name of my show, like How to Podcast. That's what they typed into Google. And lo and behold, How to Podcast series, my show shows up. He listens to the most current episode and then goes all the way back to the beginning. And he's been listening. He's got like 100 episodes he's listened to so far. And then he reached out to me.
Awesome.
And he's like, Dave, I love what you're doing. Can I get you something? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, what kind of camera are you using? Because we did a little Zoom call together. And I'm like, well, I have a cheap camera I bought on Amazon for like $30. He's like, I'm sending you a better camera.
Yes.
$140 later, a camera arrives at my house as a gift. And I'm like,
that is so amazing. What? Listen, I don't know who you are in Warsaw, Poland. You are going to listen to this episode. I know you are, because you're binging Dave. Thank you so much.
Isn't that nice?
Like,
right?
So nice.
So
nice.
That's the kind of connection you can have with people. And we record in a vacuum. We talk to a microphone in an empty room, hoping our voice goes out there into the world and helps someone. And when you hear back from someone who listens to your show, I have a little folder in my email that says happy folder. Anytime I get kind of any of that feedback, I move that email into my happy folder. And if I'm having one of those days when I'm like, this is just don't feel like doing this today, this podcast thing, I go to my happy folder and I start reading the comments and go, Okay, it's like a big reset button.
Yes,
okay, I'm back
is.
in. I'm ready to go, right? And you need that.
You know what? So actually, are you familiar with the love languages?
Yes, the 5 love languages.
So words of affirmation has to be one of your love languages.
There you go, right there.
Yeah, mine too, because I have it. I call my truth album. So like, this isn't like a real love language, but if someone handwrites me a note or sends me a card and they handwrite something in it, I save it. And I just usually just throw it in a drawer. But one day I got them out and I started reading all of those, and
Nice.
years worth of notes. And I realized, and if you're doing that, and I'm sure that if you would go back through yours, you're going to find some common threads of people who don't even freaking know each other.
Right.
And they say the same things about you over and over and over again that, it's been a long time since I pulled mine out, but wow, I should pull it out. Yeah.
You got homework today. You got homework
today. I've got homework. I'm going to do it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you went to Podfest. I'm
did.
so freaking jealous of you. Tell me about Podfest. Have you been there before? What was it like? Big things that you loved and maybe some things that you wish they would have done. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So there was about 2,000 people in attendance. Wow. It was down in Orlando. So I live in a beach town. I live in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. So we don't get snow here. I think it does snow sometimes. I don't know. I've lived down here 3 years. I've never seen snow down here, but man, it gets cold. And I did not realize how cold it would get. And I think it's because of the ocean air, it just kind of chills you to your bones. So it was a welcome relief to leave, the North Carolina, weather and go to Orlando. I did not dress appropriately. I still dressed with way too warm of clothing. It's totally fine. But the convention center gets kind of chilly. But there's 2,000 people there. It was absolutely beautiful. It was absolutely amazing. I have never met the kindest group of people, the most welcoming, open, extroverted. I mean, and yes, there was introverts there too, of course, and you could tell by the tags because you could put these little ribbons on the bottom that says extrovert, introvert, it was great. It was great. The people there were really great, really giving, really just open to like sharing the wealth and exchanging podcast information. And listen, if I had to tell you like my biggest takeaway from that, was the people that I met probably 5 or 6 women there who are such badasses at what they do. And like, we really just connected and exchanged phone numbers, and we were texting back and forth the whole time. And, we were having bellinis and, glasses of wine every day afterwards and doing dinner together. It was really great. So I met a lot of really close knit people there. One of the other things that I really liked is that when I went there, what did I go there for? Like, I went to Podfest because I'm like, okay, great. Like, how do I monetize my podcast? Like, how do I make money from my podcast? I don't know. The only things that I know of is like selling like ads, sponsorship ads, or, just, selling my products and services through it, which I'm just like, if it comes great, the real goal. But, like, how do I do this and how do I monetize it so it doesn't like cost me a bunch of money, right? So that's what I went there to do, figure out the secret sauce on how to do it. And here's what I realized when I got there. There really isn't a secret sauce. There's like a whole lot of people with a whole lot of information on, best practices. How do you do this? But what I really came away from Podfest with, I think these are the golden nuggets that I came away with outside of the people that I met while I was there, is, really connecting with the why are you podcasting? Well, I'm already connected with my why I'm podcasting. And they're like, just be consistent, just be consistent, just be consistent. And, I heard this a couple of times that there's like this thing that happens once you reach, I think they said it was 100 episodes. Yeah. That once you reach 100 episodes, something is just going to shift in that.
Right.
And you're just going to go gangbusters. And I heard that very frequently. Okay, so here I am, 20 episodes in, I probably got another 12 episodes recorded at this point. But I thought that was really interesting. And I think for me anyway, it took the pressure off trying to figure out how to monetize versus just enjoying the process to begin with. Yeah. I mean, like enjoying the process as I'm going. And this was also really interesting, like just the whole business aspect of podcasting and what does that look like for podcasters, like one of my goals this year is I'm going to do a TEDx talk. I haven't started that process yet. but that's my goal this year. I'm going to have a
Nice.
TEDx talk by the end of the year.
Nice.
And there was several people there who talked about like, hey, I help people get TEDx talks, and, you know,
Perfect.
how it has changed, you know, their visibility and, you know, their success and their, you know, all of the things just by doing a TEDx talk. Right. I thought that was really interesting. I also thought it was super interesting that there was several people there who were publishers, and, you know, how do you take your podcast and how do you turn that into a book? So, and, you know, that's what I do anyway.
Yeah.
So I just thought all of it was just super interesting. And, you know, at Podfest there in Orlando, they had several tracks.
Yeah.
And this was actually very confusing for me. It took me a hot freaking minute to figure it out, because they probably had 200 freaking like talks, like speaking stuff, right? So, but there was tracks that you could do. So you had like, you know, a visibility track and a business building track and, you know, a technology track. And within all of these tracks was an entire day, every day, of who's speaking, what are they speaking about. And then, so I just felt like I kept kind of getting turned around everywhere, and where do I want to go next? And, you know, which is going to be the best value. So like, it took a minute. Like, it was very, very well rounded. The information was on point. The people there were amazing. I'll go back.
Yeah.
I'll go back.
Good. Awesome. When we look at our podcast in the early days, you said you're at about 20 episodes at this point. The one thing that I really try to encourage young podcasters, new podcasters, is to celebrate the small. We so often default to, I can't wait to make money. I can't wait to be big.
Yeah.
And at the meantime, there's even in the beginning, you have like your 5, 10, 20 listeners. And people are like, oh, that's it? All this work for 5, 10, 20 people? It's kind of like when your kids were really, really small and you're like, would you just grow up already? Like, I would love to be able to have a conversation with you, and you're doing your Goo Gagas. Hurry up and grow up so I can talk to you. And then hurry up and get big enough that you can drive the car by yourself. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, slow down.
I actually didn't mean that.
Small, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
But as a podcaster, we're like, oh, I just want to be big. I just want to be big.
Yeah.
And at the meantime, you have the privilege and honor of interacting with 5, 10, 20 people who chose you over everything else in the world. They came to you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And if we could just develop that foundation of those small handful of people who show up on the regular for us and build into them while we're small, I think that is probably something that we glaze over so easy because we're just seeking that big 1,000 listens per episode and 10,000 followers on Instagram. I want to get to that number. As soon as you get to the number, you just want to get to the next number.
Yeah.
But what can you do to pour into your audience in the beginning to grow them, right?
Yeah. And you know what? You're absolutely right. And I'm like, it's a good reminder that, you know, life really is simple. You know, we complicate things, you know, and you're telling me this as it pertains to podcasts. And I tell people this when we talk about books, right? Like, I'll never forget that first publishing company that I worked at. I had so many authors who like, you know, I'm going to be a New York Times bestseller. I'm going to sell 1 million copies. And like, yes, you absolutely can do both of those things. But I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, what if one person reads your book and it changed their life? Like, is that going to be enough for you? And like in podcasting, is it enough for me to at least invest into one person who's listening to my podcast that inspires them to take action towards that thing that they desire? Yes, that's enough for me. And interestingly enough, because this is the other thing that Podfest inspired me to do, because my podcast this far has been interview style. Like, I talk to people, you know, like I'm pulling information out of them, and I love doing that. But Podfest also inspired me to do some more polo sodcasts. I'm going to do some polo sodcasts, solo podcasts. And I feel like I'm comfortable enough now that I can do that. You know, I think before I was kind of like weirded out, like I'm going to talk into a microphone looking at myself for God knows how long.
Right.
Like, that's weird, you know, but I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to start doing I think I'm going to start riffing, because I got all kinds of things I can start riffing.
Oh, I'm listening to you right now and I'm like, oh, there's no way you can't not do this. You can do this. There's no way you can't. There's just so much of your personality comes through just even as we're chatting here. I listen to your show. Even when it's just you talking, like even when you do your intro, your trailer, I'm like, oh, this is a fun podcast. I want to listen to this. So
Thanks, Dave.
That's the kind of stuff to build off of. And again, having a guest is great because you get to throw the light on them and they're the expert in the room and you get to learn a lot, build your connections, your community. That's awesome. I love that. My author podcast I've had for 2.5 years. I've got 330 episodes in 2.5 years.
Awesome.
Like just authors coming out of the woodworks. I've talked to like Hollywood actors who've been on the show that have sought me out. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy.
Freaking, Dave, that's amazing.
It's crazy, right? So to have guests on your show, that's great. But when you can talk to your audience one-on-one, just you and them, now you're building a bridge to the listener. Because I find that even on interview shows, the listener sometimes is put up on the stands. If you think of like the Super Bowl's coming up, they're up in the stands. They're kind of, you can't even see their face. You don't know their name, but they're just kind of watching what happens on the field as you interview your guest. How about we bring them onto the field? Like what a great experience for them to come down here and be on the field with us, with the guest, and talk to them as if they're right here with us. So to that end, Marti, I've got to ask, our listeners listening on their earbuds right now, they're walking the dog, they're at the gym, they're doing dishes, whatever they're doing. They're listening to this going, I don't think I can be a podcaster. I don't think I have the skills to do this. They're on the field now with us out of the stands. Marti, what do you say to this person who's struggling, thinking that this sounds great, but I don't think I could do this?
Oh, listen, I'm just going to keep it real. I'm going to call bullshit on that. Like, you don't think you can do this for like what reason? I don't know. Because you don't have freaking technology. Guess what? I don't even, I've got earbuds in right now that I plugged into my freaking laptop. But I don't even do that normally. I mean, I have my ring light on right now because I decided to dust it off, but I don't even do that normally, you know? I freaking record on Zoom. Like, it is so simple. Like the difference between you sitting here listening, saying, wow, that sounds really nice, but nothing, you know, just do it. You know, when I'm talking to people about writing books, you know, people want to jump the gun. They want to talk about selling. Well, how do I know I'm going to sell books? Well, you're not going to sell books because you haven't even written a book yet. So let's just start at step one, write the book. And, you know, when I talk to people who are really struggling with, you know, getting their book done, I'm like, listen, we don't have to talk publishing. We don't have to talk selling. Yeah. Maybe you're going to write the book and it's just for you, and that's okay. But you have to write the book before you can make the next decision that needs to be made on that.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about podcasting, like, you have to do it before you can even think about where am I going to upload it to? Don't think about anything else. Like, just freaking record the podcast.
Yeah.
Just record the podcast.
Yeah. I did an episode where I talked about bungee jumpers. You can study bungee jumping. You can listen to podcasts about bungee jumping, watch movies, read books, go to conferences about bungee jumping. But you know what? You'll never be a bungee jumper until you jump.
That's right.
Never.
That's right.
You'll be an expert in bungee jumping, but you've never done it. You've never done it.
And all of it except maybe like that personal experience. And listen, everybody wants that personal story. Everybody wants like the hero story, how someone came out on top. They actually want to know, like, I want to know about that time, like you almost vomited right before you started speaking, you know, like been there, you know, like they want to hear those stories. So like, I'm really glad that if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh, but I can't. And I'm like, oh, but you can.
Yeah.
And someday you'll tell somebody else, let me tell you about the time I almost didn't do it.
Right. I had a podcaster on from the UK, and her first episode, she recorded one sentence at a time. She would record a sentence and hit stop and leave, come back.
Yeah.
Because she was so petrified as an extreme introvert of doing any of this. She would like throw up in a bucket. She was just full of anxiety. And it took her hours to record like a few minutes of an episode. But as she's been doing this, she's been growing and getting better and more confidence, and anxiety's coming down. Now she's speaking on stages. Like, everything is getting better because she just started.
Yeah, it's like that.
Started. Right?
Just start. Yeah. Yes. The first time's always the hardest.
Yeah.
Second time's still kind of hard. Third time might still be kind of hard. Then before you know it, you're 20 episodes in and you're like, I think I'm going to start doing this by myself.
I love it. One suggestion I had for a listener of the show, they have an interview-based podcast. I said, you know, as far as doing a solo episode, they're like, I don't know if I can do it. I said, what if you did this? if you recorded an interview with your guest and then you say goodbye after the recording, you're still set up. Everything's still set up. And then when they leave, you just do a 5-minute recap of what just happened and release that on the off week. So you do an interview, and then the following week you do a recap, and then send your listener back to hear the interview. So then you get to talk about, hey, everyone, I just had Marti on the show. She is amazing. If you want to rebel against all of the complaints you have in podcasting, you got to listen to this episode with Marti and go back and listen to this episode, and you're going to hear Marti share her story. I record it right then and there. And now I have the recording, which I release on week 1, and I have my recap, which I release on week 2, which could be 2 minutes, 5 minutes short. Yeah. So now I get to talk to the audience, just me and you listening. Yeah. Right? And I talk about what happened in the past. And I send you back into my catalog to listen to another episode.
To go back and listen.
Right.
And that's actually really genius, because then you don't have to think about what to say. You just need to recap. Like you just need to verbally process with your audience, like the person that you just talked to.
Yeah, you're done.
Because, and listen, I have noticed too that like on podcasts, when I'm listening back to them after they've already been recorded, I'm like, oh, I should have said this. Oh, I should have said that, and it would give you an opportunity to say it instead of, oh, I should have, I'm just going to go ahead and,
Yeah. Love them or hate them. There was a Jerry Springer thing, and he would have like the craziest TV episodes ever. But at the end, he would make everybody settle down, sit back down in their chair. And he'd be like, okay, so what did we learn today? Yeah. Right. He would do like this little recap of what just happened. It could have been total chaos, but he would do this little
usually
recap.
Was.
Yeah, he did a little recap to bring it back to his main point and why this is important and what we can learn from this. So you could do a little recap like that about your previous episode, and you don't have to create something from nothing. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest fear we have as podcasters is I stare at a blank piece of paper and go, I don't know what to talk about this week.
Now what?
Right?
Now what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So send them back into your catalog. Talk about an episode. Bring it back.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. One of the things that I'm doing while I'm like in this purposeful, like taking a break is repurposing some of those interviews into like clips and like just really starting to like get that, find what my flow is on social media and promoting.
Yeah, it's good. What big lesson have you learned in podcasting?
It's really not that difficult.
Right.
We make it harder than what it's supposed to be. Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me this year, my focus is I'm on a mission to collect people. Yeah. You can collect salt and pepper shakers and whatever else. I'm here to collect people. I want to connect with people and build them up, give them a platform to come on as a guest on my author podcast, for example, shine the light on them, bring people around them, connect them with other people. Yeah. That's one of the biggest joys for me. I was on with a guy yesterday, and everything he was saying was almost like the exact copy of a past guest that I just was so in love with. And I'm like, wait a minute, you two people have to meet. Like, I don't care how you do this, but you two have to, because you're like on the complete same wavelength, talking about the same thing with the same passion. And I'm like, there is no way that this cannot happen. And I get the joy of making that connection happen through email and then getting out of the way. I absolutely love that about you. Because like, listen, like we don't do anything in and of ourselves, right? Like there is nothing. People like, I'm self-made. I did it on my own, whatever. There's always someone along that path that helps us out, right? Like we aren't meant to do anything alone. And like, I love that you have become like that connector of people, and that, you're connecting the dots and connecting people together to like, your impact is great. That ripple effect that you're creating is great. And it feels weird because you're not putting the light on yourself. Yeah. And in podcasting and in lots of Facebook groups and stuff, I see a lot of people wanting to capture the light on themselves. Yeah. Again, it's great to be motivated and have an end goal. I love that. But how can we turn our podcast into building other people up? How can we use it for good? Right. It's a superpower.
Well, I mean, and listen, and actually, that's just one of the things too. And I'm just going to point this out too, because the very first several episodes that I did very specifically was with women in the publishing industry. So I'm talking to literary agents. I'm talking to editors who help you write your memoir. Like I'm talking to all of these people and I am absolutely promoting them. And are they absolutely in the same niche? Do they do the same thing I do? Yeah, some of them absolutely do the same thing I do, but it's fine. It's fine because there's room for all of us out there. And in fact, one of my listeners emailed me and had said, thank you so much for this episode. I called and spoke to this person. And listen, I ain't gonna lie. My first initial, I was like, why didn't they just call me? Yeah. But it was fine. Like there's room for everybody. It's fine. Like whatever. I'm glad they did. That's the whole point of it, right? The whole point is to provide, tools and resources to my listeners. So yeah.
It's I hear people talk about all the time. It's that abundance mindset, just to give. I've had people come on and talk about their podcasting course and I'm like, dang. I'm here helping people trying to start a podcast too. But I'm like, let's put your link in and let's send you people. I love this.
There's room for everybody.
Right. So
listen, it's like one of those things where we can say like, I got a guy. Oh, you need that? Okay, cool. I got a guy.
Yeah. I love it. So what's your kind of goal for the podcast in this year? Any big picture ideas that you're thinking about? You said solo episodes. Anything else you want to focus in on?
No, honestly not. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing, just really focusing on, guests that can provide value to my audience. I've thought about doing a private podcast here. Like I've really been thinking a lot about doing a private podcast. So I don't know what that looks like. And I don't know, just keep podcasting, maybe do the private podcast, doing some solo stuff. Yeah, I'm just going to keep on keeping on.
In Buzzsprout, you can do a private feed that people can sign up for. And I didn't have anything there until somebody signed up. And I'm like, oh, dang.
Nice.
So now they're giving me whatever, $5 a month. And I'm like, I don't even have anything to give them. They never asked. But I'm like, well, I'm going to make them a little mini episode and talk a little bit behind the scenes and talk to them because now I know the person's name. And I'm going to create a little episode for them. It's locked, so no one else can hear it. But anybody that subscribes and supports the show monthly has access to extra content. That's extra work, yes.
Yeah, of course.
But I want to honor someone that says, this podcast is so valuable, I want to donate to it. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't know that Buzzsprout did that. That's awesome. I'm digging it.
Yeah. And the other thing I added to is my Buy Me a Coffee from buymeacoffee.com, where it's like a donation site. People can donate. And it's great because like I mentioned before, Kuba in Poland bought me this camera that I'm using. He used Buy Me a Coffee to do the funding to get me the camera. But other people have been using it as well. And we talk about all the ways we can make money with a podcast. For me, what's been working the most, I tried affiliate links. I tried all those things. I get one or two clicks. It wasn't really connecting long term. And I'd make a fraction of a penny. Is my Buy Me a Coffee is just generating income that really easy. And it's in the last 8 months, I think I've have about $2,000 to $3,000 have come in through Buy Me a Coffee.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right. And it's not
that's freaking amazing.
And I'm not like push. It's
of course not.
It's there. It's on the website. And the other thing is I also have it as you can donate to the show or you can book time in my calendar with a special calendar link through Calendly. And you get like 40 minutes of my time to talk about whatever you want. And that's a $20 donation. And I've actually had people do that. And then I also have a free link as well. So if you can't afford anything, awesome. Here's my calendar link.
Whatever.
Let's do that. So,
one of the interesting things that really stuck out at me when I was at Podfest was this woman who, I don't remember the name of her podcast, but if I'm recalling, she was a mom who had a special needs child. And her podcast was talking to other parents with special needs children. And one of the ways that she creates sponsorship dollars is through dedication ads. So you could pay whatever amount that she was requesting and record a quick little clip like, hey, Joe Blow from, whatever is dedicating this show to whoever they were dedicating it to. And I thought that was very smart. It was a real creative way and it fit with what she was doing. So it was just creative ways to get dollars in.
I had another organization, a charity, and they have dogs that they raise as support dogs. And so they have all the costs of all the dog, the food, the toys, the grooming. So I said to them, why don't you just create an Amazon wish list of all the items you need? And any of your listeners can go to your Amazon link and purchase the item, which gets shipped directly to your house for free.
Nice.
She's like, what? So she set it up on their website. And now as a listener, I can go buy a $5 toy or a $40 bag of dog food and have it shipped right to their house. Right. So you can make money with your podcast beyond the traditional box dollars of what we're talking about. So be creative and think outside the box.
Yeah, I love it.
I love it. I'm so excited having you here.
Dave, this is fun.
This is great.
This has been so fun.
This is really good. So, okay, I want you to end off with us today. Marti, give us a rebellious act that we should do in our podcast to be rebellious, to carve out our niche, because you're a rebellious person. I listen to your show. We have to leave room in our world to pivot, change as we do our podcast, absolutely. Right? So how can we be more rebellious as a podcaster within our show? What do you think? Teach.
Okay, listen, here's the deal. Listen, we can talk. We can go to conferences. We can talk to people about podcasts. We can ask how they're doing things. In the same way with books, not just with podcasts. Same way with life in general. Listen, we already know what the next best step is for us. So the best thing that I can say for your podcast is to get real flippin' quiet. Like, turn off your head. Stop trying to logic your way through things, right? And ask yourself the question, like, what's next? What's next? Is it just to schedule a solo show? Is it to reach out to someone who you would really love to have on your podcast, but you're freaked out to invite them on your show because why would they want to, whatever that case might be, right? You already know what it is that you should do next. And I think you should listen to yourself. I think one of the most rebellious acts that we can take is listening to ourselves, trusting ourselves enough to know that we know what's best for us.
Love it. I love it.
Thanks.
Good advice. Marti, tell us again, everybody, where to find your show and website, social media. You know what we always do, right?
All the things. Let's start with the show. Yeah. So my podcast is called The Rebel Maker. And you can find me wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you do happen to listen to it, I would love for you to rate, review, share with your friends, all of the things, blah, 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 blah. My business, you can find me at Rebel Queen Books on Facebook and Instagram. My website is rebelqueen.co. So all things publishing, writing, marketing, all the things. LinkedIn, I'm under Marti Bowling, Bowling. Last name is Statler, Statler. Also on Facebook, Marti Bowling Statler, because I do a whole lot on my personal page that doesn't make it to any of the other pages. So there it is. Or send me a smoke signal. I don't care.
And look for you at the next Podfest, because you'll be there.
And look for me at the next Podfest. Look for me at the next freaking TED Talk thing that's going to come up. I'm going to be on by the end of the year. It's going to be amazing.
And if you're not sure where Marti is, just go for the smell of pancakes and syrup and maybe in the smoking pit somewhere, because you never know, right?
That's exactly where I'm going to be.
And if you're listening to this going, I have no idea what you're talking about, you go listen to the trailer for Marti's show and you'll understand everything that we're talking about.
Yes.
Right?
Pancakes and cigarettes.
There you go. Thanks, Marti, for doing this. This is great.
And Dave, you're the best.
This is fun. Come back, okay? Will you come back?
Yeah, I will. Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
Hey, thank you for sticking all the way through to the very end. It's bittersweet that the episode is over and that we're done for this episode, but you will come back and I will come back, and there's you and me, and we're one big happy family here at the How to Podcast series, far beyond being just pod pals, which is fine, but I'd much rather do life together as family here. And to that end, a reminder, as we talked earlier in other episodes as well, that we do have a meetup group, and you are invited. I would love to have you come. It's free. We do them scattered throughout our calendar, different days, different times, because we have people listening around the world, like Cuba and Warsaw, Poland. Hi, Cuba. It's amazing how we can reach the world with a podcast. So through our meetup group, what we do is we get together. It's free for you. costs me money, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. We get together, we meet other podcasters, we talk podcasting, and it's a way to get from behind the microphone, sitting by ourselves, recording on our own, and doing community. Podcasters need community. You need to meet other podcasters. And just in a low-key, fun environment, talk podcasting. So my challenge to you in 2024 and beyond is to get into a meetup group, find other podcasters, introduce yourself, and make new friends. It's just like school all over again, grade 9. Let's meet each other and share the podcast journey. Go to howtopodcast.ca and click on all the information you'll find there around our meetups. And I'd love to have you there. Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next episode. Get out there and record your podcast. Take care.